Hi, my name is Barbara Chamberlin, and this is an abbreviated version of a talk I gave at the Dust or Magic Institute for the Design of Children's Media. It's really a lovely little 2-3 day workshop for people who develop educational tools for kids, and you can learn more about it at dustormagic.com. But for my talk, what I wanted to do this year was to really think and reflect about what are we even doing, rethinking the impacts of our work, and how I've come to think about that a little differently for the coming year. In my day job, I work at the Learning Games Lab at New Mexico State University, where we develop a wide variety of educational materials and virtual labs and simulations and games and animations and videos, and oh man, I have to tell you, I love my job. But I didn't want to talk per se about the work that we're doing. I wanted to talk about this. These are my children. I wanted to talk in a role as a parent for a moment. And of course, you don't have to be a parent to be an expert on children's media. Many people in the field are not parents, and they're very good at developing children's media. But my kids have really shaped some of my thinking, and I'll give you an example of that. When my oldest son was struggling with some of the traditional aspects of school, we decided to go ahead and do a bunch of assessments to see if we could figure out how we could help him better. And I'm a huge fan of meaningful assessment that directs us in what we should do. I love that. And it was all questions focused on this. Tell me about your child. I love talking about my children, and I answered all the questions easily. What was his first words? How is he academically, socially? What is he like at home? I love talking about my kid. This was an easy thing for me until I got to this question. And it seems easy at first. What are your goals for your child's future? Well, that seems really easy at first. I just popped it right off. Of course, well, I want my kids to go to college. Well, actually, that's not the right path for everybody, and I don't know that that's crucial for them. But, I want them to whatever they have for a high-paid job. Well, no, that's not really the path I took for myself. That's actually not that important to me. I want them to be well-traveled. I want them to see the world, unless, of course, they're doing other things of value and they can't fit that. Okay, I want them to have the same beliefs as me, a moral basis. Well, there's a lot of different kinds of beliefs. They don't have to have the same beliefs as me to get to become a good person. So what's really important? Well, of course, I want my kids, as you want your kids or other people's kids, to be happy. I want them to be fulfilled in the choices they make. I want them to be safe and healthy. I want them to contribute to others in a meaningful way. But gosh, the more I thought about it, these weren't really goals per se, as outcomes of a life well lived. So I thought, well, what did my parents do? So I thought of myself as an 8-year-old girl, and that's me on my horse, Nugget. And what did my parents want for me then? And more to the point, now that I'm an adult and I'm that, what are they proud of me for being? So, I'm sure at some point in my childhood, they wanted me to know my multiplication tables or to name all the U.S. presidents. They wanted to be able to write a formal letter. I had to at some point know my letters, colors, numbers, shapes. These were all important at some point in time in my childhood. But now that I'm an adult, what is it really that my parents are proud of for me? And there's a number of things: that I'm resilient, that I can overcome problems and obstacles, that I'm kind to others, that I'm capable and can do things on my own, that I'm self-aware. I know what it is I need to do and want to do and need in my life, that I'm inquisitive and self-directed as a lifelong learner or a problem solver, that I'm active in my life. I make choices intentionally. I don't let things just happen to me, that I control impulses to some extent with finances or with other things in my life. So these are really the things that I think my parents are proud of me for, or at least the things they taught me to be proud of in myself. So I have to wonder if these are the kinds of things that I want my kids to be as a parent. Well, so I have to ask, as a software developer, am I creating tools that teach children to be these things? And wow, that really got me thinking. We develop a whole bunch of tools at work and content that's really important. Kids at some point need to become digital record keepers. They should be better at writing letters. They should be safe in the kitchen or able to place coordinate pairs on a grid. This content is all important stuff. But there is what we learn, or the content, and there is how we learn it, which is often just as important as the what we learn. Let me go to a concept, security theater. So this is originally attributed to Bruce Schneier, and it's the practice of investing in countermeasures intended to provide the feeling of improved security while doing little or nothing to actually achieve it. I think of this term when I'm at airport security, or after 9/11 when I saw National Guards with semi-automatic rifles. I might feel protected, but the truth is, if something were to happen in an airport and they responded with a semi-automatic weapon, that actually could make the problem worse. Or I'm at the airport and I can have two small tubes of toothpaste, but I can't have one larger tube that's twice as big. So these things are often referred to as security theater. It's supposed to make us feel safe, but it may not actually be doing anything to make us safer. So I want to take that term and replace it with this, educational theater. Now, as I'm defining it, educational theater is the practice of creating or using educational tools which seem as though they should be educational, while not addressing the more crucial needs. We see educational theater all the time when we see things that look like they might be educational, but A, they may not be effective, and B, they may not be the most important thing for us to address. We see this in software in the App Store, certainly. Take a look at what Joan Gans Cooney Center in New America found in their review of language and literacy apps. So they looked at all the different components that learners need in language and literacy, and they found which things were represented in the app descriptions. And notice alphabet knowledge and letter sounds were by far the most common. But here's the thing, alphabet knowledge and letter sounds are really easy to teach. I mean, most kids are going to pick that up just through interaction with other adults. But the more crucial things, I think two of the most important, are storytelling and reading comprehension. Those are incredibly hard to teach. And look how poorly they are represented in the app space. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that these other things aren't important, but we as developers should be putting our considerable skill and ability into teaching the stuff that is crucial and in many cases hard. The stuff that's easy and it looks like it's educational theater. It's easily copied, easily duplicated, and it misses the more important issue. Now, I realize if you are watching this, I might be preaching to the choir a little bit, because people who are really interested in developing media for children might agree with me that we need to be doing more and doing the hard stuff. And so my question isn't, hey, should we ought to do this? My question is, how do I do it? That's what Duster Magic has always been for me, is a chance to define how I want to become a better developer. And so the question I pose to myself is, what can I do about this situation? Well, first, I can communicate what's important. There's so many things that we can communicate, and the first is to parents. Parents who are looking for educational tools, they may just be looking for the things that look educational, but we can help them understand the underlying things that are equally important. The way education happens, or the value of trying again and failure and persistence, or why we are using an app to teach something in this way. Parents want to help their children, but need our guidance into what it is that's important. And similarly, we can communicate this to learners so that learners know what kind of learning they're doing. It's okay for us to tell kids, hey, you failed that level, but you know what you're learning when you fail? You're learning how to do it correctly. Sometimes we learn a lot through that process. We can communicate these things in subtle ways, certainly in the app, but also in press or social media. Whenever we talk about what our tools teach, we should not shy away from the important things that are maybe not as obvious educationally. Here's something else that I want to do, and that is to tackle the hard stuff. Now, look, I know that we all kind of have things that we have to develop. We may not be asked to create an app on resiliency. We certainly make apps about digital record keeping, or food safety, or any of our math apps, or Treadsylvania, that's safety on a four-wheeler, or caloric intake. These are important content. And my point is not that we shouldn't be doing those things, but I think we can add on to those things when we tackle the hard stuff. So start with our existing objectives, but then add on, use those as the basics, because we can then add on to that and in very subtle ways teach discipline or resiliency or the value of collaboration. We can also help kids think of the way they are learning, help them to be mindful, self-driven, empowered, reflective. These are all very powerful ways to do learning. And finally, we should not settle for educational theater. We shouldn't settle for the stuff that looks educational and isn't easy. Let's tackle the other hard things like courtesy, kindness, empathy. We can weave those things, model those things in interactions within our game. Now, finally, I want to rethink what we measure. We just were so thrilled to do a large-scale randomized control trial on our Mass Snacks games. They worked great. They were effective at helping kids understand content. And for 5 years, I thought this would be the thing. And now I realize that we've done it. It was the thing. It was fantastic. Games are held to a high standard, and we need to prove that they can teach content. But I also realized this was not the ceiling. This was the floor of what we measure. Now that I know that, I want to go look at other things. For example, in math, can we, by use of games, change teachers' language and how they discuss with kids or ask questions to kids? Could we increase, through use of math games, communication with parents and the learner in math, or a student's self-efficacy, how confident they are they can do math well? Can we increase their voluntary time on task? Can we get them to spend more time with math than they would normally, or change their understanding of why math is valuable? Can we track how often they share with friends, or see what their own self-language is about math, about why they think it's important or how they feel about it? These are all things that we can also contribute to our field and showing the way that games can change learning. And it's not always about content. We can do better about what we measure. You know, one of my quotes that I love from Fred Rogers is, "The greatest gift you'll ever give is your honest self." And of course, he was so beautiful in his life and how he lived this. But as a developer, I can apply this as well. And I can go that extra mile. I can not just present the app and the content that needs to be taught, but I can also do what honestly I know kids and learners need. I've changed the slide a bit here to show some photos of some of the great impacts of our work. Kids who reflect on their work and feel good about a year in progress, or integrate technology in all aspects of their life, such as cooking, or increased time with parents in co-viewing an app, or interacting with leaders, such as the picture of the police officer, or a kid learning to play and explore and have fun. These are all great outcomes, and we can influence them when we really ask ourselves what we're doing. My contact information is on the screen. If you have some great examples of how this is done, please share it with me. I'd love to hear from you, or just drop me an email if you'd like to talk about some of these ideas. Thanks.